Gladiator is remembered as the roaring epic that resurrected the swords-and-sandals genre, launched Russell Crowe into superstardom, and redefined historical action for a new generation. But behind the blood-soaked arenas and thunderous crowds was a production held together by improvisation, accidents, breakdowns, and one real death that nearly killed the film itself. Actors were injured, animals nearly mauled the star, the screenplay barely existed, and the director had to stitch together a masterpiece from chaos. These are 20 bizarre, shocking, and absolutely true secrets about Gladiator. And trust me, the behind-the-scenes story is wilder than anything Maximus faced in the Colosseum. Number 1. The Oscar-winning film that started with no script at all. It sounds impossible, but when cameras rolled on Gladiator, the film that would go on to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards didn't even have a completed screenplay. In fact, unfinished is putting it politely. Russell Crowe described the early draft as a jumble of disconnected scenes, barely 35 pages long and missing entire story arcs. Not only were core character motivations unclear, Maximus didn't even have a consistent backstory yet. Crowe constantly fought with the writers, telling them flat out, "I'm not saying that line. It doesn't make sense." Ridley Scott, instead of slowing down, doubled down. He shot footage based on instinct, atmosphere, and whatever pages happened to exist that morning. Some days, the cast arrived on set without knowing what their characters would do until minutes before filming began. One producer later said, Gladiator was made on sheer momentum and miracles. The crazier part? That chaos gave the film a raw edge, a sense of unpredictability that made Maximus's journey feel visceral and alive. And the madness was only beginning. Number 2. Russell Crowe hated its most famous line and tried to delete it. Few lines in movie history are as iconic as Crowe shouting, "Are you not entertained?" at a stunned arena.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
But what fans don't know is that Crowe despised the line the moment he read it. He thought it sounded theatrical, fake, something a modern stage actor would yell, not a Roman general turned slave. He begged Ridley Scott to remove it. Scott refused. And in the scorching heat of Malta, with dust in his armor and sweat in his eyes, Crowe yelled the line anyway. Not because it made sense to him, but because he was genuinely irritated, exhausted, and fed up with the scene's confusion. His frustration exploded into the performance, giving it an intensity that could never be replicated. When he watched the playback, Crowe was stunned. His accidental outburst didn't just fit the moment, it defined it. That improvised frustration became one of the greatest movie quotes of all time. And speaking of danger born from chaos, nothing prepared Crowe for what came next. Number 3. The tigers were 100% real, and one almost killed Crowe on camera. Gladiator's infamous tiger duel looks authentic because it was authentic. Those weren't CGI predators, they weren't animatronics. They were 5 adult Bengal tigers weighing over 450 pounds each, brought onto the pit floor with only a single trainer and a chain limiting their movement to a mere 15 feet. Russell Crowe was ordered to stay within a tight, safe zone, but tigers don't care about zones. During shooting, one tiger lunged so fast that the trainer barely yanked its chain in time to stop it. The animal's paw slashed through the air inches from Crowe's face, so close he felt the wind of the strike. Everyone on set screamed. Ridley Scott, unfazed, simply said, "That was great. Reset." Crowe later admitted he had a moment of pure fear, the kind where time slows down and survival instincts kick in. The kicker? The tiger scenes took weeks to film, meaning Crowe had to step into the arena with those animals again and again. And this wasn't the last time danger overshadowed artistry. Number 4. Joaquin Phoenix had a breakdown filming the incest scene. Commodus is one of cinema's most unsettling villains, and Joaquin Phoenix delivered that performance by diving into emotional extremes that blurred the line between acting and psychological strain. The infamous scene where Commodus threatens and caresses his sister Lucilla left Phoenix trembling between takes. He later confessed that the intensity of Commodus, a character defined by paranoia, desire, and emotional instability, pushed him into a panic attack on set. Connie Nielsen, who played Lucilla, was so worried she held Phoenix's hands and told him, "It's just acting, you're safe." But Joaquin, a deeply immersive method actor, felt real guilt and disgust. Ridley Scott, however, thought the nervous energy enhanced Commodus's fractured psyche and encouraged Phoenix to use that turmoil in the next take. The result? A performance so disturbingly authentic that even crew members watching the monitor felt uncomfortable. And this emotional chaos was nothing compared to the insanity hiding in the film's original ending. Number 5. The original ending was so strange, it had to be buried forever. Believe it or not, Gladiator was never meant to end with Maximus dying in the arena. Early drafts, and we're talking drafts Ridley Scott considered, pitched an ending where Maximus is resurrected by Roman gods and becomes an immortal warrior who fights through time. One version had Maximus alive in modern times, battling tyranny across centuries, almost like a mythical avenger. Another version had him reincarnated across multiple eras, eventually ending up in the Vietnam War. The idea sounds like a fever dream now, but the writers genuinely considered it before realizing they'd accidentally turned Gladiator into Highlander. When Crowe read those pages, he told the producers, "We're not making that movie." They agreed. Maximus's death became the emotional spine of the story, and the immortal warrior idea was shoved into a vault, hopefully forever. Little did the team know that a far more tragic, real-life twist was about to strike the production. Number 6. A lead actor died mid-production and forced the team into digital resurrection. Oliver Reed, the legendary actor who played Proximo, died of a sudden heart attack in a Malta pub during a drinking contest with British sailors. His death rocked the production. Reed still had key scenes left, scenes essential to Maximus's journey. Universal panicked. Reshooting the entire arc with another actor would cost tens of millions. Ridley Scott chose a shocking alternative, digitally recreating Reed's face on a stand-in body. In 2000, CGI wasn't remotely as advanced as it is now. The process took months, cost over $3.2 million, and required meticulous compositing just to produce a few minutes of footage. Yet the result was seamless enough that most viewers never realized they were watching one of the earliest digital resurrections in film history. Reed's final scene became a haunting farewell, both for Proximo and for the man who portrayed him. And if that wasn't impressive enough, you won't believe how they created the Roman world around him. Number 7. Ancient Rome was built in a parking lot. Gladiator's breathtaking Colosseum looks massive, ancient, and impossibly detailed, but the truth is far stranger. The structure wasn't a sprawling Hollywood backlot. It wasn't a reconstructed Roman ruin. It was built in a parking lot in Malta. The crew constructed a 52-foot-high partial replica, just enough of the lower 2 levels to film actors in the arena. Everything above that was digitally extended. The stone textures, frescoes, statues, and weathered cracks weren't real. They were painted or added in post-production. Extras sat in a tiny section of bleachers, and hundreds of digital spectators were copied, stretched, and rearranged until the Colosseum looked packed with 50,000 people. Ridley Scott called it the greatest optical illusion of my career. And the illusions didn't stop with architecture. Some of the brutal gladiators charging into battle were hiding a secret of their own. Number 8. Many of the extras playing gladiators were actually drunk. Because Gladiator filmed in Malta, Ridley Scott hired hundreds of locals as extras for the arena scenes. And locals, being locals, came with a particular cultural trait. They enjoyed drinking. A lot. Before filming, many extras drank beer to pass the time, and by the time the cameras rolled, dozens of them were genuinely tipsy. Their stumbling, chaotic energy was so convincing that Scott kept it, saying, "They look like real fighters." The irony? The drunken improvisation added more authenticity than any acting workshop could have provided. The laughter, the shouting, the swaying postures, all real. And while these extras survived with little more than hangovers, Russell Crowe was enduring an injury list long enough to fill a medical scroll. Number 9. Russell Crowe collected injuries like badges of honor. Over the course of the shoot, Crowe was hurt so many times that producers joked they should wrap him in bubble wrap. He tore multiple muscles, dislocated his shoulder, cracked bones in his foot, chipped a bone in his hip, sliced his face with a real sword, and once took a flying piece of wood directly to the eye during the Germania battle scene. A doctor advised him to stop filming for several weeks. Crowe refused. "Maximus only rests when he dies," he said. And, true to character, he kept fighting. The physical punishment shows in every scene. His limp during parts of the movie wasn't acting, it was real. And speaking of Germania, that opening battle caused a stir of its own. Number 10. The Germania battle was so real, soldiers complained it felt like actual war. The forest battle that opens the movie is brutal, smoky, and visceral. So much so that actual German soldiers hired as extras complained the experience was uncomfortably close to real combat. The explosions were real. The fire was real. Trees were blown apart with controlled charges. Flaming arrows hissed through the air. Horses bolted in terror. One extra compared it to a nightmare. "I could smell the burning wood and hear the screaming. It felt like war." Ridley Scott insisted the chaos was essential, saying, "War should never look clean." The authenticity worked. The audience felt swept into ancient violence, but the production was only getting more dangerous from here. The chaos of Gladiator's production didn't stop after Germania or the Tiger Arena. In fact, the deeper the film went into its shooting schedule, the more unpredictable and dangerous things became. From malfunctioning props that almost killed actors to historical errors that slipped straight past the studio executives, the production spiraled into a strange mixture of brilliance and near disaster. And somehow, everything that went wrong only made the final film more iconic. Let's continue the madness. Number 11. The mechanical chariot accident that nearly took off Crowe's foot. As if fighting real tigers and enduring a parade of injuries wasn't enough, Russell Crowe suffered one of his closest brushes with disaster during the chariot arena battle. The massive Roman chariots weren't harmless props. They were real metal rigs pulled by horses at high speed. During one chaotic take, Crowe's horse panicked, pulling his chariot slightly off its mark. One wheel struck a hidden spike used for stunt safety, flipping the vehicle violently and slamming Crowe sideways into the arena wall. But it wasn't over. The wheel of a second chariot, part of the stunt formation behind him, spun out of control and narrowly missed Crowe's foot by inches, so close that crew members swore they saw the wheel brush the leather of his sandal. If it had hit even a fraction of a second earlier, his foot would have been crushed on camera. Production halted for hours as the stunt team reevaluated every chariot angle. Crowe eventually stood up, limped back into position, and insisted on continuing. And just when the stunt team thought they'd planned for every scenario, another technical nightmare appeared. Number 12. The fake arrow that didn't fire until it fired for real. The big Colosseum battle was supposed to be controlled chaos, carefully choreographed violence with timed pyrotechnics, retractable swords, and harmless projectiles. One of these was a pneumatic arrow launcher built to fire rubber-tipped arrows past Crowe and the stunt performers. But during the first full-speed run, the launcher malfunctioned. Instead of releasing the arrow on cue, it jammed. The crew reset the mechanism, but unbeknownst to them, the pressure system had built to nearly double its intended force. When they triggered it again, the arrow shot across the arena like a real weapon, slicing the air with a terrifying whine and embedding itself deeply into a wooden shield inches from an actor's throat. The entire set froze. Had that arrow fired at a slightly different angle, it would have struck someone directly in the face or neck. Ridley Scott, pale but calm, walked over, examined the embedded arrow, and simply said, "Let's dial that back." The malfunction forced the effects team to redesign the arrow propulsion system overnight. But the improvised fix wasn't the last technical surprise on set, especially when the filmmakers discovered a historical detail they had gotten hilariously, embarrassingly wrong. Number 13. The major historical mistake no one noticed until it was too late. Gladiator strives for gritty realism, but there's one glaring historical error that made it through the entire script process, the entire filming process, and even early test screenings, and was only caught when a historian publicly mocked it. In the film, Commodus gives a dramatic speech declaring he will bring back the glory of Rome and its republic. The problem? Commodus was an emperor. He would never have praised the republic, a system his own father ended. Even worse, all surviving documents show that Commodus openly despised the Senate, mocked their traditions, and demanded godlike worship. But the line sounded cinematic, so it stayed in. Only after historians around the world pointed out the blunder did Ridley Scott finally admit the mistake, shrugging it off with, "Historical accuracy is overrated when drama works." Yet drama wasn't the only thing pushing against reality. The film's visual identity had its own strange origin story, one that came from a moment of tragedy. Number 14. The cinematography was inspired by real soldiers who saw combat trauma. One of the most distinctive elements of Gladiator's visual style is its desaturated, high-contrast, almost dreamlike battle imagery, especially during the Germania scenes. Many viewers assumed it was a stylistic flourish, but the truth is far darker. Cinematographer John Matheson revealed that he based the battle's color design on interviews with real war veterans who described combat as distorted, muted, and surreal, as if the world had lost its color. They spoke about sound fading in and out, light flickering through trees, and time slowing down in moments of mortal danger. Matheson replicated these sensory distortions through shutter manipulation, rapid contrast shifts, and desaturated palettes, creating a war atmosphere that wasn't just visually beautiful, it was psychologically authentic. The eerie visual language gave the film an emotional weight that resonated deeply with audiences. But while the visuals drew inspiration from real trauma, one actor was wrestling with real trauma of his own, and he kept it secret until years later. Number 15. Joaquin Phoenix's fear of Crowe was completely real. On screen, Commodus fears Maximus because he knows he can never equal him, morally, physically, or spiritually. But what audiences didn't know is that Joaquin Phoenix carried a similar fear in real life. Russell Crowe's intense presence, physicality, and unpredictable acting process intimidated Phoenix profoundly. During their first major scene together, the confrontation after Marcus Aurelius's death, Phoenix was so overwhelmed with anxiety that he asked the crew if he could rehearse his lines privately, away from Crowe's gaze. When Crowe approached him during a break and placed a firm hand on his shoulder, Phoenix nearly burst into tears, believing Crowe was angry at him. Instead, Crowe quietly said, "Use it. If you fear me, let Commodus fear Maximus." That single moment shifted Phoenix's entire performance. He leaned into the trembling hands, the wavering voice, the emotional volatility, not as acting choices, but as genuine reactions to Crowe's intimidating energy. The result was a villain who felt disturbingly real, a man consumed not by cartoonish evil, but by authentic insecurity. And that authenticity would drive the film into its final, most complex production challenges as it raced toward its climax. Number 16. The helmet scene was born from panic and became legendary by accident. One of the most unforgettable shots in Gladiator is Maximus emerging into the sunlight of the arena, steel helmet hiding his face, as cameras circle him like a predator preparing its kill. But that moment only exists because Russell Crowe was having an emotional meltdown minutes earlier. Crowe, exhausted from weeks of injuries and frustrated with the chaotic script, refused to film the "My name is Gladiator" sequence, telling Ridley Scott, "This doesn't feel earned. Maximus wouldn't reveal himself yet." Scott, already out of options and behind schedule, seized the idea and improvised. "Fine, keep the helmet on, stay anonymous, we'll rewrite around it." The decision instantly reshaped the film. Instead of rushing the reveal, Maximus became a silent, vengeful phantom haunting the sands of Rome. The helmet, originally just a prop, became a symbol of trauma, of anger, of identity stripped away. And years later, Crowe admitted that the scene only works because he snapped under pressure. "Sometimes the breakdowns," he said, "are where the art hides." It wouldn't be the last time chaos reinvented a scene. Number 17. Real swords were used, and one actor was nearly impaled. Although the props department built dozens of lightweight weapons, Ridley Scott hated how fake they looked under harsh sunlight. So he made a dangerous call. Bring in real steel weapons for close-up shots. The blades were dulled, but dulled steel is still steel. During a multi-actor fight sequence, one stunt performer slipped on sand while spinning his blade. The sword flew from his grip and shot across the arena like a spear, burying itself into the wooden bleachers next to a sound operator who dove out of the way just in time. The set froze, then erupted into frantic panic. Crowe, who witnessed it, rushed over thinking the crewman had been stabbed. Miraculously, no one was hurt. From that moment forward, the stunt team insisted on using lightweight aluminum for duels, and Ridley Scott begrudgingly agreed, except for Crowe's hero sword, which stayed steel for the entire shoot. When the crew questioned the risk, Scott simply replied, "Some things just look better when they're dangerous." And danger was becoming a recurring theme, especially as they approached the film's ambitious finale. Number 18. The final fight was completely rewritten on set after a costume disaster. The climactic duel between Maximus and Commodus was meant to be a grand, extended battle involving elaborate swordplay, flaming hazards, and coordinated formations. But on the morning of the shoot, everything fell apart. Phoenix's armor didn't fit properly, causing him to lose mobility and nearly fall over during early rehearsals. Crowe's breastplate cracked from previous fight scenes and couldn't be repaired in time. And the stunt choreography, months in planning, looked stiff and theatrical when filmed under the golden arena light. With the sun already dropping and no usable footage, Ridley Scott pulled Crowe and Phoenix aside. "Throw away the plan," he said. "We fight raw." What followed was a brutal, improvised struggle, less like a choreographed duel and more like two wounded animals clawing at each other in the dust. Crowe used real force, dragging Phoenix by the arm, slamming him into the ground and knocking the wind out of him. Phoenix, who insisted that Commodus fight like a desperate coward, leaned into the panic, grabbing, flailing, scrambling. The final result, fierce, messy, emotional, became one of cinema's most powerful finales. Sometimes perfection is born from broken armor. Number 19. Maximus's final vision of home was shot after the crew realized they missed a crucial scene. The emotional heart of Gladiator is Maximus's dreamlike vision of the afterlife. Wheat fields swaying, sunlight drifting across his hand, and the quiet echo of home calling him back. Yet unbelievably, this pivotal moment almost didn't exist. Weeks after filming Wrapped in Malta, an editor noticed something missing. There was no visual bridge between Maximus's death and the peaceful acceptance of his fate. Without it, the film's ending felt abrupt and bleak. Ridley Scott scrambled the team and flew Crowe to a farm in Surrey, England. They shot the entire sequence in a single evening, using a handheld camera, natural light, and a sparsely dressed field. Crowe walked slowly through the crops, his hand brushing the wheat, giving a performance so serene that even the crew fell silent. That quiet, improvised moment became the emotional soul of the film, a reminder that sometimes small, unplanned scenes carry the weight of entire stories. And yet, Even after filming the ending, one massive challenge remained.
Number 20.
The massive score that saved the film was written faster than anyone believed possible. Hans Zimmer's score for Gladiator is considered one of the greatest ever written, sweeping, spiritual, thunderous, and intimate. But few know the truth. Zimmer wrote and composed the majority of it while the film was still being edited, with scenes unfinished, reshoots pending, and the final cut changing daily. Director Ridley Scott begged Zimmer to create music that felt ancient but timeless, brutal yet hopeful. Zimmer locked himself in a studio for days, composing with lightning speed. Lisa Gerrard, whose ethereal voice became the sound of Maximus's soul, improvised many of her vocal lines in an invented language, channeling pure emotion rather than literal words. The track, Now We Are Free, written in a matter of hours, brought editors to tears. The score was so transformative that it effectively rewrote the entire tone of the movie. Scenes that once felt clunky or incomplete suddenly resonated with mythic power. Without Zimmer, Gladiator may have been remembered as a chaotic historical drama. With him, it became a modern epic, a film that felt less like a movie and more like a legend. And thus, from broken scripts, malfunctioning weapons, roaring tigers, tragic losses, and last-minute miracles, Gladiator rose from the dust just like Maximus himself, wounded, weathered, but unforgettable. Which of these behind-the-scenes secrets shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this deep dive into cinema's hidden history, remember to like, subscribe, and share for more epic movie stories.